Hi everyone, welcome to our weekly update. I'm going to talk a little bit about the assignments you completed for me last week and what's coming up this following week. This first assignment that you did, the Understanding Sources assignment, people did a good job. Almost everyone was able to identify which source was of which type, which was good. But one of the reasons why I wanted to do more than just identify and to think a little bit about how you might utilize those is that they're really, when it comes to sources and what kinds of information and materials you can utilize in the research process, there really are no easy answers. I don't believe that the idea of just never use X because it's not a scholarly source is always the best approach. Or never ever go to Wikipedia because Wikipedia is crappy. I know that you've heard things like that in the past. I would say actually a better approach is to just really be critical and skeptical and careful about what kinds of information different sources give you and how they might be utilized in the research process. So for instance, it's much better to ask, well, why is this being written? What's the purpose of this kind of source? For what kind of audience? And that those questions, the answers to those questions, give you a better understanding of what you can expect to see in that source and how it might help you in the research process. So, for instance, one helpful way to think about sources overall is the way in which they sort of approach information. So reference resources, here this outer ring, are really created for the broadest audience. Things like Wikipedia or things like Encyclopedia Britannica are meant to be written for anyone. You don't have to know anything about the topic. I could just go there and find some information about it. But because they cast such a wide net in terms of the audience, they also tend to be very shallow in terms of the amount of information they actually give you about your topic, how deeply they dig into your topic. Popular resources tend to dig down a little bit more deeply. So for instance, we can look at the example with a reference resource, to go back for a second, with reference resource. Something like Wikipedia, which most people correctly answered as a reference resource, really casts a wide net. It'll give you a nice broad overview of information. And so if you know nothing about your topic, it's a really great place to begin. I use Wikipedia all the time. If something comes up and I don't really know anything about it, that's one of the first places I go. I read through a couple of pages. It gives me a sense of what that topic is about as a kind of foundation for which to build on. So while I may never cite Wikipedia as an actual source in my paper, I'm still utilizing it in the research process. It's giving me a place to begin, and that's really important to think about. So I would never say never use Wikipedia. In fact, I use Wikipedia all the time. I would say never end with Wikipedia. Only start there. So that's how reference resources can be really useful to us in the research process. Popular press sources start to dig a little bit more deeply. They usually give us a little bit of a deeper understanding about what a topic is than a reference resource, but they're still generally written for a popular audience, meaning they're still pretty broad in terms of what they cover. So sources like this, for instance, this one, which most people identified correctly as a popular press source, these kinds of resources can be extremely useful to us as in the research process. They can give us an overview of what this topic looks like within our contemporary discourse. How are people thinking about this topic? How are they writing about this topic? What do they care about? Popular press sources start to dig into that a little bit more than a reference resource would. They can reveal something new. They also oftentimes give us references to past studies or to other experts in the area. So even though they are generally written in terms of they're written to sort of persuade or entertain us rather than to just inform us, they still have to provide us with evidence for the claims that they're making. They're still oftentimes making claims and kind of editorial claim via an opinion or an argument, but they have to provide us with evidence for those claims. That evidence might not yet be unpacked, right? They might reference an article or a study. They might summarize some findings. They might identify an expert. But those are all places where if I wanted to dig more deeply, I could go into those areas and find those studies, those sources, that expert, and find more in-depth information. So in that way, a popular press source can also be a really great resource to use for helping me to get started in the research area. I wouldn't cite it in a literature review because it's not part of the scholarly conversation, but I might cite it in my introduction if it's one of the things that got me thinking about my topic in a particular way. And I might cite it in a discussion if it helped me to think about some of the scholarly material that I was seeing as well. So it can even have a place in terms of a citation in an article. Trade journals, which you didn't have an example of in this assignment, are written for still a more narrow audience. Usually they're written for professionals within a trade. And they're starting to get at that kind of area of expertise and specialization that makes them less available to some of these other audiences, but also deepens an understanding about a topic, digs a little bit deeper, gives us something more complex to look at and to think about. And then finally, scholarly sources are really written for the most narrow of audiences. Only those people who have some specialized expertise. But they're the ones that dig most deeply and most complexly into a topic. So I think every single person accurately identified this source as a scholarly source. And you mentioned a lot of really great things there as how you knew. Obviously, there's specialized language that is more complex in terms of its writing. Extensive time and resource commitment. They not only told you what evidence they used for their claims, but they tell you how they arrived at that evidence. You know, how did they obtain the data that they used? It allows people the most depth, like the most information in order to be really able to really engage with and analyze an argument. And you know, the important thing here is the purpose of that is not to just inform us or to even entertain or persuade us, but it's really to add to our collective body of knowledge on a topic. So hopefully you've gained from this assignment some understanding about how resources can work in different ways and how you could use them in the research process in some different ways. I want to talk just a little bit about your group discussion, the scavenger hunt. Just a shout out, you should try, if you're a discussion leader, try to post by Thursday so people have a chance to respond to you. This is one of those assignments that's interesting because in the very first part of the semester, I ask you, if you remember, in the confidence assessment, how confident people are at using, say, Google to find sources. And everybody rates themselves very high in every single class I've ever taught. And yet when we have an assignment like this and people tell me how they use Google, I start to realize that they don't really know as much about using Google as they think they do. It's really important to recognize that Google is it's all the information that exists on the internet. So having some tricks and techniques that help narrow down what you find and limit your results can be super, super useful to you. Also, Google's not great for everything. It is great for some things, but not for everything. So in this scavenger hunt, these first two scenarios are places where Google could be probably the best place to start. And by Google, I pretty much mean any search engine. But even if you start here, you should still utilize some of the techniques that are going to help you narrow down your results. If I just go into Google and I type in a few keywords, I'm going to have a gazillion results. And, you know, I could just choose the first thing that comes up, but that's not going to give me the most quality information. But if I use some of the specialized techniques like using cite.gov or using Boolean terms, I'm going to get better results. For instance, rather than just going into Google and typing in student debt statistics, I could use cite.gov and student debt statistics, and my results are going to be focused in on, you know, government websites that are more likely to give me high quality statistics in this area. I don't have to wade through a bunch of crap to find what I'm looking for. I'm going to have a lot more specialized information. That's really useful in the research world, where this can take you a very long time to find the highest quality information. Another option is to go to trusted sites, places like Pew Research, and look specifically for stats from those places, rather than try to wade through the entire, you know, World Wide Web. Google's also not the best place to go for all of the stuff you might want to find. So if you are writing a research paper and you are a BSU student and it's for a communication course, you should always start in the library. Never start with Google. And by the library, I mean the virtual library. You can do it from your home in your pajamas. But you should go onto the BSU library website, and specifically you should use Communication and Mass Media Complete database. Rather than searching through all of the information on the internet, what that will do is to search through only 400 quality scholarly journals that librarians have already vetted for you. And so you know that the results you're going to get from a search like that are going to be relevant to communication, they're going to be high quality, they're going to be scholarly sources. It saves you a lot of time. If you decide that you really need to use Google, you should limit by using Google Scholar. If you don't know what I'm talking about in this video, you should go back and watch the videos for this week. You should also be really careful about the keywords that you use, because those are the ways in which, whether it's on Google or on the BSU website, that information has been stored and sorted and categorized. So the keywords you use are going to be very specific to what you find. If I want to find how Pepsi's official response to their public criticism, the best place for me to go is to the source. Don't mess with Google, just go to Pepsi's official website, and I should be able to find their criticism here. So sometimes, you know, you have to really think more carefully about where exactly do I go to find the information that I'm looking for. Just a quick note here. This was like our very first assignment. Knowing how to look up a specific scholarly source in the library is really useful, because one of the best places to find scholarly sources for your research papers is to look at what other scholarly sources are being referenced, are in the reference section of a source you've already found. So I can look through those. I might find something that I think really looks good. Knowing how to go there and find it easily is a really useful skill. If you don't know how to do that, go back to the very first assignment that we had in the course, the Browsing Communication Journals, and there's a link to a video that will explain how to do that. And then lastly, you know, something like this, oh, a word comes up. I have no idea what that word means. Where should I start? I shouldn't go and look for a scholarly source. I shouldn't even go to Google. I should go to a reference source. I should go to Wikipedia. I don't know anything about this. I'm going to go to Wikipedia and look it up. Credo is a reference source that you'll learn a little bit more about next week. All right, so just, you know, some overviews about what you learned. If this stuff, like I said, is unfamiliar to you, I highly encourage you to go back and watch those videos from last week. Looking ahead, a few key things. You have a group discussion on evaluating websites. And you also have an assignment that looks at evaluating scholarly sources specifically in relationship to the idea of relevance. You should look for some feedback I've provided on your topic. And you also have upcoming literature review assignment. So be looking for that.